and welcome to Planning Preview for the month of April. My name is Jason Bieber with the Planning Office at the City of Sioux Falls, and joining me again is Urban Planner Karla Resendiz.
I'm back, ready to talk about all things Planning Commission.
Well, you totally cut me out last month and brought somebody else in instead, so I'm excited to be back. Thank you for giving me my job back, so I appreciate it.
You bet.
So yeah, we've got, a couple of fun things on the agenda for this month, some rezonings, and then last we'll get to talk about, which I think is one of the most important things we do every year. So we'll talk about the rezonings, so we can get back to that thing. So great. First one we've got here looks like this is one of our single family houses that's going to a twin home or duplex, or has always been a twin home or duplex?
Nope, it's never been a twin home or a duplex. That's why they're working with our building services team to ensure that all life safety efforts are met.
And then one of the other things that we're going to be looking at from a zoning perspective is just making sure of the parking issues, right? We got to make sure that they have enough parking.
Parking and setbacks are always triggered when you rezone something.
Great. And then next it looks like we've got a rezoning from conservation and single family to some additional conservation single family. Are we looking just to kind of switch a couple things around here and there?
Yeah, just match what they ended up doing for the drainage out there. It sounds like some of that was delineated as wetlands by the federal government, so they're remapping that out.
To get some more, yep. So we see those from time to time on part of those, so that's great. And then looks like we got another one that's going from kind of a mixture of single family apartments and conservation to all really single family out here at 10th Street and 6 Mile Road. Yeah,
this applicant seems to have a plan in place to move forward with single family houses at this corridor.
That's great. We'll get that going, and it'll be nice getting some of that land developed. Later in the show, we have Shannon from our engineering department that's going to kind of talk about some road projects in that area. So
lots of movement.
Nice. Yeah, lots of things going on. And then it looks like we've got what's called, this is going to be a little interesting, so you'll have to describe this a little bit for myself and the viewers, but a POPUD, a pedestrian oriented plan unit development, which we don't see every day. I think Lake Lorraine is about the only one we have in town, correct, with that?
We've got another one on the northwest side of town.
Okay.
But yes, in theory, it would be something that's a little bit more walkable, a little bit more mixed use. Yeah. But this was just in the old ordinance identified as a PD. So when we went parcel by parcel in 2014, this was the closest zoning classification, which it would allow all of the zones that they're requesting to turn to or to move to. However, they want to do it in phases as opposed to going in all as one development.
Yep, makes complete sense. And that's what I think one thing that's important that you just hit on, that all of these things are currently allowed. We're just doing it more in a conventional zoning way instead of the POPUD, which it really isn't anymore.
Right, so that's why they needed the preliminary subdivision plan to reassess access and all of the infrastructure components.
Yeah, and that's the other one that's going to go along with that. There were some funky roads that were kind of going through the middle of this development, and like you said, this was one of those that was done in the early 2000s, and now things have kind of changed out there, so they're kind of redoing all of that. And then our last item, which I think is a very important one, that this is actually a staff-led item going to Planning Commission as the applicant. But this is our yearly adoption of the growth tier maps that we like to update every year to kind of change where our different tiers are and where we think the city's going to grow in the next 5 to 15 to 30 years.
Right, this is a tool within the comprehensive plan that will help match private development to public investment. And then some key themes that we saw with this change were 22,000 acres were added to the future growth map, and most of it was actually to the west of the city because we have Minnesota and Iowa that we're abutting to, so it's fun to think about going that way as maybe a Sioux Falls, Minnesota. But I don't know that we're there yet, so we're going west. And then to the south, much of that land is able to have road networks, so then that got moved from Tier 2 to Tier 1, and those were really the key themes there.
Yeah, and that'll be another thing we get to talk about later in the show is the second phase of Veterans Parkway. And you just talked about it. Once Veterans Parkway gets completed, hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, the entirety of the south 8.5 a mile loop. That's what'll be great. We'll get so much pressure for development down there.
Right.
And as you said, that's why we're moving it to tier 1. We're going to start being able to put in those sanitary sewer lift stations to get that ground open to 106, where people know south of 106 is Harrisburg, right? So essentially that'll be all the farther south Sioux Falls grows to the south. And you talked about it, we're going to be growing west, you know, over the next 100 years. So the mall could be the center of Sioux Falls in the next 100 years. Yeah.
Crazy.
Who would have thought? And one of the things I don't think regular residents of Sioux Falls understand is, or developers, a lot of them think if I can flush my toilet, we should be able to develop there. Well, it's funny because these maps are not just one map based on sanitary sewer. One of the things that Jeff in our office gets to update, right, is 4 maps actually. The first one's sanitary sewer. The second one's water and roads, essentially, right? And then the third one is like public facilities, right?
Yeah, which is key to, you know, living a life, a quality of life, with libraries and rec centers and all of our fire stations and police stations. It's something that the city progressively works on in getting ahead of that development, so the city doesn't end up paying more than a piece of property is worth. If we get ahead of it before, then we hopefully see some land that can be purchased at a lower cost.
Yeah, and I think the fire department has done a really good job with that. And also, I think it's important to note that the city, different city departments have been working together, right? The fire station isn't just a fire station anymore. It's going to be a fire station, police report to work station, and then even our own department, our building inspectors can report to work there too instead of driving all the way downtown. And I think that's just a really cool thing as we continue to grow. The farther you get away from our main office, right, you're being way more efficient if you can check in and plug in your computer and do work in a place close to where you live. And then I think those are the 3 maps that we talk about. And then we have the 4th map, right? And what does the 4th map then take into account?
The 4th map will outline everything and then categorize it from tiers 1, 2, and 3, 5, 10, 15 plus years of anticipated development patterns that you could see within the respective tier.
And I think that's one thing that's awesome that Jeff does, especially his whole team, is we've essentially annexed in 700 acres a year. So he's trying to project, as you talked about, the amount of acres that we've added over the next 25, 30 years. We got to be able to service 700 acres a year times that number. So just a huge puzzle that we got to try and put together because there's only so much money that goes around.
Slowly but surely we'll get there.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for joining us today, Karla. Appreciate it. And stay tuned. After the break, we're going to have Shannon Ausen and talk about all the super exciting road projects that are coming up in 2025. Stay tuned.
Hey, this is Seth with the City of Sioux Falls Housing Division. I'm here today with another Home Maintenance Minute for you. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about your driveway in the winter. It is a city ordinance that you have to remove the snow within 48 hours of each snow event. And so in order to get that snow and ice off of your sidewalks, off of your driveways for yourself, a lot of people like to use salt. And I myself have used salt and it works really great. However, as you can see with this driveway, this in particular homeowner used some really aggressive salts. And so it actually ate through the top layer of their driveway and it's all pitted and there's sand everywhere. And this concrete isn't going to last as long as it should. The Housing Division wants you to know that clearing your driveway and sidewalk helps avoid safety issues for individuals in wheelchairs, neighbors passing by, and delivery drivers, or anyone else who needs a safe path. Clearing ice and snow can avoid damage to your sidewalk, such as water infiltration into cracks and joints, specifically during the thaw-freeze portion of winter. There are multiple products and methods for clearing snow and ice from driveways and sidewalks during the winter months. We encourage you to do your own research and understand the consequences of the products that you are using. Lastly, we want to thank you for taking care of your investment and continuing to keep Sioux Falls the safe neighborly community we enjoy. Thank you for watching today's Home Maintenance Minute.
Welcome back to Planning Preview for the month of April. Joining me now, as we get to have every year, at least once a year, is Shannon Ausen, the engineering program manager, knows everything about every street getting built, specifically in 2025, but for like the next 5 years, right?
Right on. Thank you so much for having me again. It's always a joy to be here.
Well, we love having you on because you talk and you know so much about these big street projects, and it gives hopefully a couple people an idea of what you guys are looking to do this year. So let's maybe talk about a couple of the big ones. I know one of the big ones that's going to probably hurt a lot of people on the east side is our Veterans Parkway, Arrowhead Parkway reconstruction, which is going to be awesome, but I'm not going to the east side for a little while, okay?
Me either, even though I live there. But you are absolutely correct, Jason. We have one of basically the biggest projects for the city of Sioux Falls for 2025, and it'll actually extend into 2026. So there's going to be a 2-year impact, and it'll be basically constructing the intersection of Arrowhead and Veterans that we have completely surrounded for the last probably 5-10 years, just building all of the capacity up to the intersection. And the intersection was the last bit because we needed all of the other routes. We needed 6 Mile Road, we needed 41st Street as possible detour routes. So there is a reason to the madness of why that is the last thing we do.
And I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this going to be like one of the biggest intersections in Sioux Falls with like triple left-hand turns onto Veterans Parkway? Are people going to like crash into each other figuring this out, or
what? Well, maybe you don't recall, but we do have triple lefts up on Benson Road and 229.
Okay.
It was a little bit of a rocky start at that interchange, but yes, at this intersection there will eventually be 3 or triple lefts. What we're going to do, though, is open it up with dual lefts and then save that capacity, just have it hatched off for now. But it will have more lanes than 41st and Louise once it's actually at full capacity. Plus, we have 3 pedestrian underpasses on 3 of the legs. And so that is one thing that 41st and Louise doesn't have, is we make those pedestrians cross on the surface or at grade. And so we heard a lot of comments during the design of, hey, give us a better route to go underneath all of these lanes, and that's why we are constructing all of the 3 pedestrian underpasses.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be awesome that you're doing that, those additional pedestrian underpasses, and it'll be nice just to finish that whole Arrowhead Parkway. It looks, you guys did such a nice job, in my opinion, from east of Veterans Parkway to 6 Mile with that nice median with all the nice trees. It looks really awesome.
Yeah, and so we will continue that same design on Arrowhead Parkway, and then we will also continue the same design on Veterans for that separate, for that green median also.
So that'll be great. So you said it'll spill over a little bit into 2026. Are we expecting most lanes open in 2025 with some work in 2026 kind of coming back, landscaping and things like that, or is there still going to be major construction in 2026 too?
That was hopeful thinking that we would be back, but no, it'll be full construction for 2 years.
Gotcha.
And so east-west traffic will be closed for essentially the 2 years. And so we're hoping in the winter of 2025, we're hoping to get 1 lane in each direction going east and west, but that just depends on the weather and the rain and how much we get this year and how much the contractor can get done. But next year then, this year in 25, we'll do the east side of Veterans Parkway on Arrowhead Parkway, and then next year will be the west side of Veterans Parkway on Arrowhead. And then at that same time, we'll keep Veterans Parkway 1 lane in each direction open at all times, but then build like half at a time.
Well, this kind of sounds like, I remember the 26th Street Bridge project at Southeastern. Everybody, I mean, let's face it, it was a pain in the butt for 2 years, but now it's amazing. So it's kind of.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, Jason, because if our drivers out there remember, we had that temporary retaining wall at 26th and Southeastern where you drove by it and there was 20 feet of that retaining wall. We're doing the similar practice at Arrowhead and Veterans, except we only have a retaining wall about that 6 to 10 feet, so it's not as tall, but it'll certainly look weird when you're driving next to it.
Well, that's great. So that'll be a great project because that'll finish the north, is it 8.5 miles of Veterans Parkway then, right? We'll be completely 4 lanes all the way from 90 to 57th Street.
Correct.
And then we can transition then to our South Veterans Parkway. You guys completed the first phase from Cliff over to Western. Really great. And then where are we shifting phase number 2 at? Which way are we going, east or west?
So I'm going to give a shout out to all of our drivers that are driving from Western Western over to Cliff. We got about 2,500 vehicles that are using it. We opened it up and their drivers are there instantly, so we're very happy about that. Certainly we'll continue to raise as we continue to go east, and so our next segment will be Cliff over to Sycamore, and that includes two pedestrian underpasses and then also includes a bridge up and over the railroad tracks. So the first segment we went up and over 85th Street. Now we're going to have another bridge going up and over the railroad tracks. Not a lot of impact to actual driving public because Southeastern and Sycamore are both gravel roads.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have those closed during construction one at a time. But we certainly know that there are some people coming in from Highway 106 from the south that'll have to be rerouted over to Cliff Avenue.
And then I know you talk about this a lot, that the state's kind of paying for the main deck of Veterans Parkway, and then the city's responsibility is getting those arterials down to it. So then when will you guys pave Southeastern and Sycamore down to the intersection? Will that be this year too?
Yeah, so it looks like from preliminary schedules, the contractor will start on Southeastern from Bison Trail down through the Veterans Parkway intersection, about maybe 500 to 1,000 feet. And so that'll be a full urban section. When urban section means it'll have curb and gutter and sidewalks, along with the 4 lanes along with the median. And then on Sycamore then, just because we're not quite there with development yet, it'll be just a rural section with no curb and gutter, but then once we get closer to Veterans Parkway, it'll be the full build out as we go through the intersection of Veterans.
So then with us paving Southeastern, are we still about a half a mile then from 106 from that can be completely paved?
Yes, we're actually we're about halfway through 69th and 85th Street, so we're over a mile.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
No, I think that'll be another exciting project too. It's nice that people can actually see what it looks like and drive on it now.
Correct.
So it's great, Veterans Parkway.
Yeah, so our next segment then would likely be from Sycamore up to 57th Street.
Oh, so that you're going to do that third
And
then.
so that would likely be possibly, if all the right-of-way acquisition goes well, we could bid that later this year, and then that would be under construction in 26 and 27. And then we would hop back over on the first segment from Interstate 29 over to Western. We hope to get that bid maybe early 2026, and that'll also be a 26 and 27. So there's a possibility we could have 3 segments going on in construction all at the same time.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Get that finished, right?
Yes.
And then another big project that I think people maybe have seen just some development on the T side with the Orthopedic Institute, but 85th and I-29 interchange, which is going to be another massive project that I think we're starting this year, correct?
Yeah, so we have been talking about that one for a long time, and it's great that it's finally coming to fruition. So the plans are in final review right now. We are in just starting the right-of-way acquisition, and we hope to have the project bid in that July-August timeframe, and that will allow the contractor to start some grading work now or in the fall, and then proceed with starting the bridge construction maybe after the first of the year in 2026.
So are they going to do then the bridge like an overpassing, or are they doing the entire intersection at one time where it's a diverging diamond, right?
Yep, so yes, correct, thank you. So the 85th Street actually goes over the interstate. And it is a diverging diamond. And then we also have a couple of bridges at the systems interchange of Interstate 29 and 229 to go over ramps, and so it's called a braided ramp.
Cow.
And so there's quite a bit of structure to end up with that project, but it'll be really great once it's finally done.
Oh, absolutely. And then I think you've talked a little bit about working with T on 85th Street, would be west of 29 all the way kind of over to Solberg, right? That you guys are going to cooperatively kind of build that, because T obviously is on the south side of 85th Street and our growth area is on the north side. So.
Correct. And so right now the city of T actually is holding the contract of 85th Street from Sundowner all the way over.
Sundowner,
yeah.
Solberg.
Yep, Solberg's on the other side.
Yeah.
From Sundowner all the way over to Heritage Parkway. And so we built the intersection of 85th and Sundowner last year. And so where our majority of our work will be this year is actually building a roundabout at 85th Street and Heritage Parkway, and then paving in between Sundowner and Heritage Parkway. So that'll be a welcome addition, again, just for a 2-lane rural section, getting pavement to the interchange once it's finally done.
Yeah, that's another great project.
Yeah.
And I like taking people by there because nobody can really visualize. You can see the big mound of dirt that you guys have kind of built up there that you'll need, but I don't think people realize that is going to completely change that whole area.
Yeah.
I mean, our next closest interchange on 29 is 41st Street, and we know how much commercial apartment office development there's there. So it's going to be a crazy southwest part of the city here in the next 5 years.
The city of Sioux has done just a tremendous job with supporting development adjacent to the interchange. We're a little slower because it's been taking a little bit longer for us to get sanitary sewer on our portion. But it's really exciting when you do see all those nice, big, beautiful buildings right next to the interchange area.
Yeah, that could be the first place where we're actually, one side of a street is T and we're Sioux Falls with development, right?
Yep.
So that's another awesome project. And then I think you said, talk a little bit about Rice Street, right? Is that kind of getting that corridor from Sioux Falls to Brandon, starting to develop that and build that street up a little bit more lanes and more traffic?
So our overlay, so Rice Street, the city and the DOT and the city of Brandon completed a Rice Holly study in the last couple of years, and we heard a lot of feedback from both communities that they wanted more of a connection between the communities with bikes. And so we're trying to figure out the existing surface on Rice Street just needs to be undergo asphalt overlay. So we plan to do that this summer, but then restriping it to somehow allow for bike lanes on both sides. And so we're trying to get that connection to the river at Bonson, and then out over to Veterans Parkway. So we're really hopeful that will happen maybe later this year, because we don't really have the time in the beginning of this construction season with Arrowhead and Veterans being under construction. We want to try to keep all of those alternate routes open to get into the city. It's going to be a challenge to come in from Iowa or Brandon or Minnesota to get into the city with Arrowhead and Veterans being closed.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, that a lot of people use that. And then I think the future plans, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but would be Rice and Holly over the next 10 years or so, maybe turn that into 4 lanes. I know
Absolutely.
It's 2 lanes right now.
Yep.
And there's quite a bit of traffic, especially commuter traffic, coming from Brandon in the morning and going back to Brandon in the evening. So that'll be another road we'll probably see a little bit.
Correct.
bigger.
Yep. And you're absolutely right in your planning mind. We're going to be out there in that 10 to 15 years, because our volumes right now just aren't quite there for that 4-lane with a median section. And so it'll be an opportunity for us in the city of Brandon and Minnehaha County, who also has a little segment in there, to work together to get that street widened.
Good. And any other big projects next year you want to tell us about?
Yes. So the biggest one for the south side is Cliff Avenue and Interstate 229 interchange.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Gosh, I even forgot that. They put a temporary, I drive by there all the time, and they put that temporary bridge in.
Yes. And so that was done last year in preparation for the construction project to start probably early April. And we likely will be closing Cliff Avenue down after school gets out, so the end of May. And then Cliff Avenue will be closed through the remainder of the summer and likely past when school opens. So it's going to be pretty tough for those Lincoln High School students as well as our commuters to get north. We will have a designated detour route on Minnesota Avenue, and then we will be realigning 41st Street and then up over to Cliff. And that'll be open by the time school starts. So they'll have another way, our students will have another way to get to Lincoln High School, but in order to come from the south side of the river to the north side, they're going to have to find an alternate route.
So you got to answer me one question, because every time I see that temporary bridge, does that just work better for them to build that temporary bridge instead of knocking down one of the bridges on 229 and then diverting traffic to one of the bridges for 2 lanes? They just would rather knock both of them down for the project. It's easier and faster?
And that's a great question, because a lot of people don't understand, and our Department of Transportation partners are so in tune with how traffic around Sioux Falls works. They realize that if they take 1 lane off of 229, and there's traffic backups, and so they have to keep 2 lanes open on the interstate at all times. That's just what we've learned over the years. And so that temporary bridge will actually have 2 northbound lanes, and then right next to it, which is again the northbound bridge, will have the traffic will be diverted over to the northbound.
Oh,
and so we'll have 2 lanes in each direction, and then they'll work on the north bridge.
So that's why you had to do it, because you need 4 lanes.
We need 4 lanes, yeah. And so our DOT,
sense.
they're so quick on just trying to provide a safe route for people, and we need to have those 2 lanes.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Any other big projects? We got a few minutes left.
Yeah, so in addition to that temporary bridge, then that temporary bridge is going to be at Cliff for the next year, and then in 2026, our drivers will see our DOT folks take that bridge down and move it over to Minnesota in 229 for the project in 27 and 26, or 27 and 28. So we get to reuse some infrastructure there. So.
And I bet the exciting thing for that is not only get that intersections a pain too, just because of how 49th Street and all the off ramps and on ramps line up. But then you'll be able to get 49th Street punched through,
Yes,
right?
finally.
You've only been working on that for 20 years,
time,
25
yes,
years?
yes.
That'll be great. And then real quick before we have to go, some good news that I've heard is bids are actually coming in a little lower than what we budgeted, which hasn't happened for the last, 5 or 6 years. It seems like everything's been higher. So that's good news that we're not having to spend more than we actually are budgeting.
Correct,
So.
yeah. We still have a very robust budget for this year, around that $65 to $70 million worth of infrastructure improvements. And that's not even, taking into account all of the sanitary and water projects too. So it'll be a really busy summer for a lot of our folks. On all sides of the city, because we don't want to discriminate against one side of the city or the other. So.
Well, I'm staying away from the east side. Let me just put it that way.
Yes.
So, well, thanks for joining us. It's always fun to hear the big projects that are coming up and just all the things that I see when I see these streets or those bridges. I'm like, well, why are they doing it that way? It's nice to know that there's actually a reason behind the madness. So.
Yeah, and so a lot of your viewers, as well as the folks that watch Public Works Update, we have all of our construction projects on our website at siouxfalls.gov/construction. That if they do want to catch updates, certainly go to that website.
And I think another good map, and I know it changes every year, but it gives you a good idea of the big projects coming up, is your CIP map that you do for 5 years. I know I enjoy looking at that, and like I said, some stuff you program for 2029 may change then, but it gives you an idea of where we think the needs are going forward. But people can kind of look at that and say, oh, this is probably getting done in the next 5 years, or this or that. So another great map.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet.
And thanks for joining us for planning preview for the month of April. The Planning Commission meeting is on April 2nd. It's a Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Carnegie Town Hall. And as always, any of the items we talked about tonight, we'd love to hear public input. And as always, we do love to hear public comment on any of the items we talked about today. And also, we do have that 5-minute comment period at the end of the agenda for anyone to talk about anything planning related. Thanks, Sioux Falls, and have a great day.